hypothetical executive mandate for a nationwide voter ID requirement represents a significant point of conflict between federal and state powers, as well as between competing visions of election integrity and/or access. While proponents argue such a measure is necessary to secure elections, opponents contend it is a form of voter suppression and a dangerous overreach of presidential authority. A close examination of the legal, political, and social dynamics surrounding this issue reveals why a presidential mandate is unlikely to succeed and what its consequences would be. Summary and analysis. The central issue is the constitutional authority over federal elections. The U.S. Constitution's Elections Clause, Article 1, Section 4, explicitly states that the times, places, and manner of holding elections for senators and representatives shall be prescribed in each state by the legislature thereof, but the Congress may at any time by law make or alter such regulations. This clause establishes a clear hierarchy. States have primary responsibility, but Congress has ultimate superseding power. The president, by contrast, is not mentioned in this clause. Therefore, a presidential executive order attempting to unilaterally impose a national voter ID standard would be on shaky legal ground from the outset. Legal analysts across the political spectrum largely agree that such a move would be seen as an unconstitutional usurpation of legislative power. The presidency's role in this domain is typically limited to enforcing existing laws passed by Congress, such as the Help America Vote Act, alleviate, or the Voting Rights Act, VRA. An executive order that seeks to create a new nationwide law would almost certainly face immediate court challenges and likely be struck down. Reasons and consequences. The arguments for a federal voter ID mandate are primarily based on a desire for increased election integrity. Proponents assert that requiring a valid photo ID would deter and prevent in-person voter impersonation, which they argue is a legitimate threat to the fairness of elections. They also suggest that a uniform national standard would increase public confidence in election results by ensuring that every ballot is cast by an eligible, verified voter. This perspective often frames the issue as a matter of common sense, equating voting with other everyday activities that require ID, such as boarding a plane or cashing a check. However, the consequences of such a mandate would be profound and are the source of strong opposition. The most significant consequence would be the potential for voter disenfranchisement. Millions of eligible Americans, disproportionately the elderly, low-income citizens, students, and people of color, do not possess a government-issued photo ID. The logistical and financial burdens of obtaining these documents, including costs for birth certificates and travel to government offices, can create a significant barrier to voting. Opponents of a mandate would argue that it is a de facto poll tax, intended to suppress the votes of demographics that are more likely to lean Democratic. The legal challenges would focus on how a federal mandate would violate the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment and Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, which prohibits voting practices that result in a denial of the right to vote on account of race or color. Prediction and solutions. Given the constitutional framework and historical precedent, a presidential mandate on voter ID would not be a tenable long-term solution. The prediction is that any such executive order would be swiftly met with legal challenges from civil rights organizations, advocacy groups, and states, leading to an injunction from federal courts. These courts would likely uphold the established constitutional division of power, reaffirming that election regulation is a matter for state legislatures and Congress. The legal battles would create a high degree of uncertainty, potentially disrupting election administration and confusing voters in the process. The only durable and constitutional path to a nationwide voter ID law is through the U.S. Congress. A legislative solution would require a compromise between the two political parties, a difficult task given the deeply entrenched positions on both sides. A bipartisan bill could, in theory, create a national standard while also providing federal funding to ensure free photo IDs are readily available to all eligible voters, thereby addressing concerns about disenfranchisement. This approach, similar to the recommendations of the bipartisan Carter-Baker Commission on Federal Election Reform, would balance the goals of election security with the fundamental right to vote. Ultimately, without a clear act of Congress, the states will continue to operate under a patchwork of different voter ID laws. The debate will remain a key political issue, but the power to create a uniform national standard lies solely with the legislative branch, not the executive.